Ladies and gentlemen, this is a real challenge after Spencer to talk about a similar subject, and I don't want to take too much time from the young investigator that really deserves to be in this session. I just read his paper, so I tried to be fast as much as I can. Also, I want to be a bit different than Spencer was, maybe a bit more philosophical. We are publishing the European Heart Journal in Zurich, in the Zurich Heart House, with a team of 4 people and many associate editors, as you will see in a moment. Now, my title is Scientific Publishing, and I ask myself, scientific publishing, scientific writing, what is really scientific? And Spencer already said, art and science are near each other. And I turn to my favorite philosopher, Ludwig Wittgenstein, who said, in science, the world consists of facts, and the world is the totality of facts. And so we actually report facts. So the observation of a basic phenomenon is the start of any paper. I have an example for you. If you have also the sound, please. This is Columbus with his son Diego, and he asks him, what do you see? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe we have to go back, otherwise we miss the point. Is it in? Okay, maybe now. Otherwise I just explain it. Now it's coming. He asked his son Diego, what do you see? And he sees, of course, the ship here. And then he asks him again, what do you see now? It's gone, he says. And then Columbus asks him, what does this tell you? And he thinks about it. But Columbus has the answer of this basic observation. It's round, he says. And he's discovered that if it's round, you can sail around and discover America, where Spencer lives these days. So the basic observation is when science starts. So the idea then comes first. What does this mean? That first I see the ship, then I see only the mast, and then I don't see anything. You have to have a concept of this. It is round. So basically, when we ask, what is a paper? Is it worthwhile to be published? Is it new? Is it original? Is it feasible? Is it interesting? And is it important? This observation was extremely important. America would not have been discovered without it, or much later. And when do you do this? I mean, we talk about scientific publishing, but we're in the wrong part of the game, because if you look at the age of Nobel Prize winners and great inventors, you see that the greatest productivity is between 30 and 40, and I see a lot of young people. That's when you have to do your great innovations. There are a few down here, so we shouldn't lose hope. Now, how to write a good paper? That was really the question. Well, think and observe whenever you see something important. And don't trust the experts. Because this is a physicist. He said, flying with machines that are heavier than air is without practical importance and senseless, if not completely impossible. A few years later, somebody took off, and yesterday I flew to Egypt easily. So, to be innovative is very important. And in the European Heart Journal, we have a program, the Knowledge Finder, and we click on it, and it immediately tells us this paper has 76% overlap with the one we're considering. So this is quite a bit. If it's more than 90%, it's almost copy-paste. So we're going to look at this, and we want to have, of course, new things. So you have to have a new observation, possibly a new device, that's even better. And then, of course, you have to define your question. And you almost have to write the introduction when you start your project. My mentor, John Shepard at the Mayo Clinic, 25 years ago, told me, if you start to start a project, you should write the introduction of your paper before you start an experiment, because it defines your question. And then, of course, what can be said at all can be said clearly. So we have to be clear and simple. This is not novel, writing a novel. This is describing facts. Now, writing the abstract then is extremely important because it summarizes all your work, and this is the part of that everybody reads, including the editor and the reviewer. Hopefully the reviewer will read more, but in the first check, the editor will look at the abstract, and we've heard about sample size and so forth, and if it's a small sample, he may not even read it further. So you have to write an abstract with background, methods, results, conclusions, and this is actually in a nutshell already the paper, and so that is why it is so important that you do this well. The abstract must be crisp and clear and contain the take-home message, because the editor is interested. Is this important? What are the conclusions? Then you have to be in time. It's like taking a train or a plane. And I would like to show you an example. This is Rosalind Franklin. She's one of the first women scientists in the 20th century, and she was called the Dark Lady of DNA because she did crucial experiments and discovered in her radiographs already the structure of DNA. And a guy, Jim Watson, came to visit her and she showed him the pictures, and she was a bit afraid to publish them because she wasn't sure whether they actually are really important. And a few years later, these guys actually got the Nobel Prize for a paper they published in Nature. And these are the guys here, Watson and Crick, and they said, we also have been stimulated by the unpublished experimental results and the ideas of Rosalind Franklin. So if you have good things, you have to write it up and don't sit on it. Because, as Sterling Moss said, if everything is under control, you're not going fast enough. So go for it, and then the reviewers will tell you whether actually it's the right thing you report. Now, of course, the message section is very important. Only describe what you have measured or observed. Honesty in science is given if you describe results that you have observed. If you say how you measured it, and how you selected your patients. We discussed that just a minute ago. So the methods are not very interesting, but very important. And science, of course, assumes honesty and correctness. Without it, it cannot exist. My greatest friend is truth, as Isaac Newton said. Now, of course, then you have to select the right journal, and there are many journals, and of course, we hope that you submit to the European Heart Journal, which is run by a team of editors, myself, Jose Brugada for electrophysiology, Bernie Gersh for almost everything. He's a very broad clinician of lab method for prevention and stem cells. We need also a statistical reviewer, and we discussed that. Statistical analysis is very important, and we check whether it's correct. Frank Rashidska and heart failure, hypertension, Patrick Sorois, and living beings for intervention. So we send it to an expert associate editor or deputy editor, and he's then the one that usually can select appropriate reviewers that are experts, hopefully, in the field, so that you get constructive criticism from you, the reviewers, rather than something that drives you nuts. And of course, I use my entire department to help with the journal. And you can see that in cardiovascular medicine, last year we just made it to number 3 after circulation, JACC, the European Heart Journal, and we will see how this is going to be later this year. We also have, if you really want to be fast, like Sterling Moss, we have a fast track. Not all journals have fast tracks. These are papers that are a bit shorter, and usually they record something very interesting, very novel. They're not complete yet, but you want to get it out before somebody else has published it. And we have a clinical track for those who report clinical results, and we now also have a fast track basic science with Stephanie Wimler as the editor. And for those who are interested in education, we also have figures with the editorials or with the review articles. And if you want to use them for your own talks, you can download them into PowerPoint directly from our homepage. And we have also an ESC journal family. So it may be that your paper has been submitted to the main journal, but maybe it's too specialized, and we may send it because it's reports about the new wire looking at bifurcation, stenting. We send it to Eurointervention and ask Patrick Sorois whether he would be interested, or the paper may be more interesting for heart failure. Now, how does this work? We then ask the editor of the European Journal of Heart Failure, it's there, from Belthusen, whether he's interested in the paper based on the reviews that you have received with the main journal. And he says, well, I'm interested in it. And then we ask the author, will you submit a revised version based on the comments of the reviewers of the European Heart Journal to the European Journal of Heart Failure? So what is the advantage of it? It's quick, and you can resubmit without reformatting it, and you already have reviews, and you have a higher chance of being accepted. We also have CardioPulse, and of course we report also about Egypt. This is something behind the science, and you may have read that we have had a report on cardiology in Egypt, and we have several reports on other countries because we want to bring to the attention the diversity of European and Mediterranean and Arab countries as far as they practice cardiology and do science. Now, when you have your paper ready, you need to write a submission letter. And in the submission letter, you should mention the author's contribution. Why is it important what you submit? You should mention any conflicts you may have. And you can also suggest reviewers. But don't only take your friends, you know. If you're afraid of enemies, try friends. It's the rule. So, but you may have, you may know reviewers that know your field and are fair, and you can propose them. We might take them. Now, how do we decide? And Spencer already talked about this. The originality is very important. The incremental novelty, not everything is a breakthrough like balloon angioplasty by Andreas Grünzig in our department. It may be an improvement of a new balloon, a stent or something, and this is an incremental novelty. It must be important for our readers, be it clinical or basic, and interesting to read. The methods must be sound, and in general, it shouldn't be just descriptive, it should also provide some mechanistic insight. And of course, then you get a priority score, and more than 80 is usually required in our journals because we take about 12 to 13% of the manuscripts, and then we look at the reviewer, and the reviewer may tell you what he thinks. And you see, here we have a few reviewers, like 3 in general, and I will decide, or somebody else that is on charge at that week, whether this is a major revision, minor revision, acceptance, or a rejection, and we can select all these different options in the system. Now, the decision and priority is, of course, the interesting question. Appropriate number of patients, we discussed that. It has to be appropriate, and we get more in cardiology, we get stricter in that. The power calculation has to be sensible. The statistical analysis, of course, is based on it. Figures should be convincing and easy to read, and the discussion should be logical. So let's look at how we write that. And Spencer already said the most important thing. The first paragraph should say, this study for the first time demonstrates, blah, 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 blah. This notion is based on the following observations. And then you already know, in a nutshell, your argumentation. And then you can expand on it and say, our observation is in line with previous reports, but extends them. And that is very important, and so forth. So if you're lucky, you're accepted. And you can have a